This is the problem with these marches, Paul. That is that the police stand by and look at people with signs from the river to the sea chanting jihad and do nothing about it. It is the police we need to galvanise into action on these marches if they are to display less hatred towards Jews, if you ask me. Your thoughts?
I agree 100%. And as a newspaper, this is something we called for weeks ago. We have some ridiculous situations where the police on the beat, police on duty, seem unaware what their powers are. They're frightened to act. I mean, we had a ridiculous situation, I think I may have mentioned on this program previously, with Police Scotland, where there was a complaint about anti-Semitism online, some virulently anti-Semitic postings, and the police in Scotland declined to take any action because the complainant wasn't Jewish. So they don't actually understand what they're doing. And then again we had some months ago the beaming from the river to the sea on the House of Commons. And the police declined to take any action, and yet they took action against Jewish people who had a low loader, a trailer, which all they were doing near the Commons was displaying images, posters of the hostages calling for their release, and they were stopped. The police have no idea what they're doing. There's no guidance from the top, and that's what we need.
And we saw that a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, with the gentleman, the Jewish gentleman trying to get across the road and the copper. Frankly, I always thought his heart was in the right place. He was trying to say, look, if you go across that road, it's going to be dangerous for you, because there was a big pro-Palestinian march, and it probably would have done. But he used the term, the words, he said, the problem is you're openly Jewish.
Yeah, well, that was that. This was really badly misinterpreted. Whether we agree what the chief executive of Campaign Against Anti-Semitism did and how he went about it, that's not the point.
No, it isn't.
Why should somebody Jewish wearing a kippah, a skull cap, not be able to walk on the streets of London or any other street just because there's a demonstration going on? Why should he feel in danger, and why should the police stop him? Are we going to stop Sikhs wearing turbans? Are we going to stop anybody wearing any religious insignia, anything that marks them out as their religion? I have to agree with nearly everything that Michael Gove has said, and it was about time that a politician actually came out with this.
But I'd like him to point the finger at where the real problem is. It is not going to solve the problem of the pro-Palestinian marches if you say, oh, organisers and the decent people among you, could you call out examples of Jew hatred? It's not
Can you
going
imagine
to.
that?
Yeah, how about the police step in and arrest these people? And the other thing he said, Paul, which worried me, he said, and this was a classic example of political cowardice. He said, anti-Semitism coming from the far left and the far right. Well, I know that anti-Semitism can come from the far right, but I haven't seen too many examples of far right anti-Semitism recently. It is the far left that are the problem, and the far left are infiltrating this pro-Palestinian marches, and basically the pro-Palestinian stance is becoming conflated with left-wing politics. And so when he said, oh, we've got problems with anti-Semitism from the far right and the far left, yes, we've got palpable, obvious problems from the far left. Right now, I'm not seeing a whole lot from the far right.
I do have to say we have carried some correspondence in our letters columns from readers who do fear that this anti-Semitism can come from both sides. But it's quite amusing what you're saying. I mean, can you imagine the organisers of these marches, these rallies, standing up beforehand, addressing the baying mobs, saying, "Oh, by the way, don't display any swastikas, don't make any chants about from the river to the sea. Be nice. We're here to be nice." This is quite ludicrous, and it's the police who need training. They need guidance from the top, from the to officers at the very top. They need to be told what they can and cannot do, and forget this wokeism. They need to be able to act without fear of any reprisals. They're afraid of getting it wrong, that's all, but they don't seem to be too concerned about getting it wrong where Jewish people are concerned.
Yeah, your opposite number at the Jewish Chronicle, Jake Wallace-Simon, the editor there. That's why I mixed up your papers. I do apologise for that. Really bad mistake. But he tweeted something again. You see this all the time. It was a bunch of pro-Palestinian protesters on the streets of London. You know, obviously things getting quite volatile. There's a Jewish guy with a Star of David flag, and of course the police. They don't do anything to the pro-Palestinian marchers. They descend on the Jewish guy and arrest him and cart him off, as if he's some sort of troublemaker, as if his protest must take second place to the pro-Palestinians. I mean, I make no bones about it, Paul. I've seen these marches. I've been to 3 or 4 of them, made a point of going to look at them. And the pro-Palestinian tendencies of the police are obvious. They're keen on the pro-Palestinian marchers and less keen on some of the Jewish people. Some of my friends go down to make their point, courageous fools though they are, and they are putting their lives on the line when they do this.
Yeah, and sadly, we have seen some police officers being happy to have selfies taken with pro-Palestinian demonstrators, and that's very, very worrying. It's just there just seem to be two sides to this, and Israel and Jewish protesters, the Jewish, those who stand by Israel, those who fight anti-Semitism, do not seem to get a fair crack of the whip at all.
No, they don't, and we need to do something about. As I say, my final point, just to come round to it again, it would be good. You're right about Michael Gove. I'm probably being too critical. At least he made the speech. At least his heart is in the right place. But I'd like to see someone in power in the government say to the likes of Sir Mark Rowley, in charge of the Met, and the other big city police chiefs, you start arresting people for displaying Jew hatred, for anti-Semitism. Start doing it in these marches, because if you don't uphold the law, God knows what's going to happen. Would you agree?
Well, more than that, I think they need arresting, and I think the courts need to deal with these people severely. Perhaps that will then stop. If they get the message, you can't get away with it. The arrests are one thing, and they can't just be allowed to go away with a caution. I think these people need to be hauled before the courts. These comments, these displays of swastikas, the slogans, these are pure anti-Semitism, and these are against the law. This is race hate. This is against the law, and it needs to be treated as such.
By the way, while I've got you, because I covered this story last night, but I'm sure you might share my fury. The International Criminal Court, that British barrister, what's his name, Kamil Khan, I think his name is, who is moving to charge both the leader of Hamas and Benjamin Netanyahu with the same war crimes, as if there's some kind of equivalence between the two. I mean, this is an utter disgrace. I mean, Netanyahu, who issued a really impressive statement along the lines of, by what audacity do you accuse me of being the same as the leader of Hamas? But I mean, what is going on there?
Well, I spoke on this station this morning on this subject. I mean, how can you have equivalence between the leader of a democracy and leaders of a terror group? We're speaking in the same breath as Putin, another one. They've tried to bring these same charges against. Again, we have to remember these are charges at the moment. We can only hope that the judges actually who sit and make the decision actually come to have some common sense. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. We saw immediately after October the 7th, the very day of October the 7th, the tide turned against Israel. We heard Israel being maligned for what had happened, and that they deserved what had happened. And yet those of us who have seen the videos of beheadings, playing football in the streets with the heads of those who have been beheaded, rapes, mothers cut open, pregnant women cut open and the fetuses removed, children seeing their parents killed in front of them. I mean, how can we be talking in the same breath about Hamas and Netanyahu?
Yeah, absolutely disgrace, I think.
It is
But
great.
Biden, to his slight credit, I suppose, he did condemn that wholeheartedly. But as I understand it, he's still withdrawn weapons support from Israel in the light of a potential invasion of Rafah. So he seems to be giving with one hand when it doesn't matter much. In other words, faint praise with words. But when it comes to actions, he seems to be getting a bit anti-Israel, doesn't he?
I don't know if he's anti-Israel. I'm not quite sure he knows what he's doing. Um, I think Israel, whatever we might think of Donald Trump, Israel had a lot to thank Donald Trump for, including moving the embassy to Jerusalem. I'm not quite sure that Biden knows what he's doing. Not even quite sure he fully understands the situation in the Middle East.
I don't think he does. I really don't. Paul, thank you very much for joining me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. That's Paul Harris, the editor of the Jewish Telegraph. Get that right, Kevin, for once in your life.